And secondly, somewhere in there, I heard the phrase national security mom. This is a phrase that should never be uttered by any human being in any context. It makes no sense, for one thing. It's a phrase that's intended to empower and lend legitimacy to some of the dumbest women we've allowed to seize power in this country. That includes women like Nina Jankowicz, the buffoon who made songs about how the government should censor conservatives online. It also includes Victoria Nuland, who oversaw the war in Iraq, the overthrow of Ukraine's government, pretty much every other disastrous foreign policy decision in this country's recent history. It includes CNN analyst Juliette Kayyem, the imbecile who recently tried to claim that the guy who shot up an ICE facility had no discernible political motivation. So these women are all national security moms. And the world would be a much better place if every single one of them had stuck to just being a mom instead of getting involved in national security. But the MSNBC clip does not stop there. Somehow it becomes even more embarrassing and pathetic for everybody involved. Watch.
You can't take anything for granted, and you can't dismiss it. There is some misogyny that is in the electorate that needs to be confronted.
It really is incredible when you have Abigail Spanberger, Mikey Sherrill, her background, all the different jobs that she has held in the military, and also like Alyssa Slotkin. I mean, my God, these women are incredible. And to them, I would say, fight, because we need them. We need them.
And Mikey is like, she's doing a ton of interviews. You know, when I talked to them, when I was in the car, you know, it was this car, she'd gone from interview to interview to talk to. But, you know, you still see the anxiety.
Yeah, Sherrill did have a few missteps in her campaign, but she still has, as you say, about a 5 or 6 point lead per polling. Spanberger's leading Virginia a little bigger than that, but you know, both still competitive races here heading into the last couple of weeks. But to Mika, to Molly's point, I mean, this is something that a lot of Democrats are grappling with right now. Is they've nominated women 2 of the last 3 elections for the presidency, lost both. There are some who say, well, we can't do that again. The stakes are too high. But of course, that does fall into the same misogynistic trap.
Other countries have no problem electing women.
So they're blaming sexism for the fact that Abigail Spanberger, the Democrats' nominee for governor of Virginia, is struggling in the polls. And once again, there are about 10 different problems here. We'll start with the fact that, like Mikey Sherrill, Abigail Spanberger is not, in fact, struggling in the polls. She's ahead by a lot. According to most polls, she's up by 8 points. So they're just making that claim up out of thin air and presenting it as fact. Secondly, if Abigail Spanberger were actually down in the polls, it would make perfect sense. She's a horrible candidate. She was asked on stage during a debate to explain her support for Jay Jones, the Democrat who's running for Attorney General in Virginia, who sent several text messages talking about how badly he wants to see the children of conservative politicians get murdered. In response, Abigail Spanberger just grinned like a sociopath. Watch.
That's why I'm wondering why my opponent won't say beyond it's abhorrent and disgusting, why she won't say it is not okay and that he must leave the race because Jay Jones advocated the murder, Abigail, the murder of a man, a former speaker, as well as his children who were 2 and 5 years old. You have little girls. What would it take him pulling the trigger? Is that what would do it? And then you would say he needs to get out of the race? Abigail, you have nothing to say? Abigail. What if he said it about your 3 children? Is that when you would say he should get out of the race, Abigail? You're running to be governor.
Now, by itself, this should have tanked Spanberger in the polls. In a normal country, one where Democrats didn't want to murder every single one of their political opponents, Spanberger would be down by about 20 points after this. And of course, that video reveals yet another major problem with the MSNBC ladies' argument, which is that Abigail Spanberger is running against a woman. And not just any woman, but a black woman. As you can see right there. So how exactly are we supposed to shake our heads as we watch the Virginia's governor race and condemn America for being a sexist, misogynistic hellhole, which will never elect a woman, unlike all those other more sophisticated countries, when a woman is inevitably going to emerge as the winner of this election? How does it make any sense at all? Now, if MSNBC wasn't going to disappear in about 5 minutes, then maybe someone would have been awake enough to notice this fundamental flaw in the reasoning. But really, that's just being too optimistic. This is a perfect illustration of how effortlessly, how reflexively the identity-based victim card is still thrown around. Even after the last election, which you'd think would have been a pretty big wake-up call, this is still their go-to. Even when it makes no sense whatsoever. Blaming sexism in a race between 2 women. That's what they're doing. What's especially interesting about this particular segment is that it shows how the left doesn't even respect their own victim hierarchy. Because according to their hierarchy under normal circumstances, the black woman is above the white woman. No questions asked. They should be talking about how Winsome Sears is only trailing in the polls because she's black, and Virginia just isn't ready to support a strong, independent black woman. But, black women are carrying the country on their backs with no credit, with no gratitude from anybody. That's usually what they say in these kinds of situations. But of course, politics overrides everything in the end, as we know. So instead, we're treated to wailing about how Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris were supposedly super competent, even though Hillary Clinton was a criminal and Kamala couldn't even pronounce her own name. Kamala was asked the world's biggest softball question on national television, and she flubbed it. She was asked point blank, as you recall, whether it's a good thing to provide taxpayer-funded sex changes for illegal aliens in federal prison. Anybody with political instincts whatsoever, anybody with an IQ higher than an amoeba, would say, no, we shouldn't do that. That sounds like a policy that's cooked up in a lab somewhere to be the worst policy idea ever proposed in the history of this country. Obviously, we should do that. But Kamala didn't say that. She told Brett Baer that whatever the law is, she would follow it. Too stupid to comprehend the idea of changing the law, just like she's too stupid to carry a friendly interview with CBS without heavy editing that bails her out. After watching this very dire segment on MSNBC, the only question that remains is whether the left could ever bring itself to play the sexism, racism card on behalf of a white male Democrat running against a black female Republican. Now, that'd be an interesting hypothetical. And in that case, I'd say probably not. I don't think they're willing to go that far. Politics overrides everything on the left, except their deep and passionate hatred for white men. Some bridges are just too far to cross. MSNBC would rather die out completely and fade into nothingness than come out in defense of a white man in that scenario. And what do you know? In just a few weeks, that's exactly what's going to happen to MSNBC anyway. All 10 of their viewers will have to go online to read dumb and incoherent New York Times op-eds about sexism because MSNBC won't be around to read it to them. The endless identity politics simply aren't keeping the lights on anymore. And after watching this extremely grating segment, it's not hard to see why. And that is why